mystery and horror, the air itself is filled with monsters.
Children of the night, what music they make. He's alive! He's alive!
Well, hello. I'm Dan, and this is Monsters Up North. Cue Jackass theme tune. Bow, bow, bow. That's what it feels like I should be doing there. Today I am joined by the multi-hat-wearing, one-woman empire radio show host and booker of crappy Airbnbs. Yes, I haven't forgotten. From Distant Screams. Also in the background, we have the emotional support audiovisual tit, Chris. You might not hear him, but he's there. I promise you. He's like, what is it? Onomatopoeia. You're like ever present. He's one of those people everywhere at once. So I want to start today's podcast by getting to know Kip a little bit. We're going to do a rapid fire question round. Chris has been through this, so he'll know how you feel. I like to call this section Just Feels No Thrills because Dan doesn't know what she's doing. So all we need to do is come out with the very first thing out of the choices that I give you. What just comes naturally, just say it. And we'll see where it takes us. So
okay, I'm excited. It's interesting. Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. Pepsi or Coke?
Pepsi.
Koalas or kangaroos?
Koalas.
Nick Cage in Con Air or Face Off?
Face Off.
Staying in or going out?
Staying in.
Do you believe in ghosts?
Sometimes.
Autumn or spring?
Autumn all day long.
Can you rap?
No. Presents, yeah.
Flying or invisibility?
Flying, I reckon.
If you could travel, would you travel to the past or to the future if you could time travel?
Past, definitely.
What song is your alarm or your ringtone?
Oh, just the generic do 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 do. Yeah, it's the bane of my life, but that's what it is.
Do you have a pet peeve?
No, I genuinely don't. I'm a pretty chill guy.
What cryptoid is your favourite?
This is a real bone of contention in our house.
You get two.
Oh, see, I'm looking over at Chris now because he hates it. I hate. So if you see him say the word Bigfoot, he's like, I hate it. So I think I love the Mothman. I love the whole concepts behind that. And yeah, probably Bigfoot just for the notoriety of him.
Coffee or tea?
Usually tea, but actually recently I've been on a bit of a coffee binge.
Aliens, real or fake?
Gotta be real, aren't they? Gotta be.
Ted or Sam Raimi?
Oh, what a question. I'm gonna go with Ted.
And if you were famous, what would it be for?
Probably having the most jobs at once.
Now that's a Guinness World Record right there, I'm guessing. I said, the multi-hat wearing woman that is Kim.
Yeah.
You're like the little man on the beach, aren't you? You know, that guy.
Literally. Literally, yeah. And sometimes they all fall off. Along with my head. Yeah.
So, who is Distant Screams and what do you do?
What do we do? So Distant Screams is me and my other half, Chris. And we always have a chuckle to ourselves when people are talking about what we've achieved and what we're doing, and they say, oh, the team behind, and it's just like, oh no, there's no team. It's literally the two of us, and Chris still works full time, so 9 times out of 10 it's just the one of me doing pretty much all of it. Chris is my he's my heavy lifting guy, so on the day when there's the sets need building and the stuff needs lifting and shifting, that's where he comes into his own. But all the run up and the admin and all that kind of stuff is me, myself and I. And it was born out of probably from the first HorrorWood, I think, when we first decided we wanted to do HorrorWood and do the convention, I went into kind of mega organisation mode, and I figured we needed to lock it down as a limited company so that we could explore other things, and that's where Distant Screams came from. The name comes from when we used to do scare acting together, Chris and I, and we both agreed the most fun about being a scare actor is hearing the people that are coming from the other part of the maze on their way to where your section is, and you're eagerly awaiting, and you can hear the distant screams of all the customers as they come through and it just something that I really enjoyed the concept of. That's where the name came from. So it just the two of us really, and we're just seeing we've been at it 3 years now, just a little over 3 years. And yeah, we're loving it. It's hard work sometimes, but yeah, it's a lot of fun.
So I'm right in saying you do two, you started 2 a year last year, or did you do 2 the year before?
So we've done, so the convention we do once a year, and then we do a range of like alternative markets at different points throughout the year. I also do a lot of kind of gatherings. I run another business as well. It's like a witchcraft business. And so I do a lot of gatherings around certain times of the year, around certain holidays and stuff. So I've kind of lumped all that into Distant Screams because it's just easier for me to keep it all in one place. So yeah, we do lots of bits and bobs throughout the year.
So one thing I did notice, because people might not know this, but me and Kim know each other from random meeting, from Kim listening to the podcast and coming up to me last year at, was it oh god,
it was Horrified,
that's the word.
And, the airport hangar.
Yeah, and yeah, that was an experience. And then we were next to each other at HorrorCon Sheffield this year, and I got to know a lot more about Kim and Chris and how they build their sets, and they have the lovely Loz. He's always somewhere, Loz. He's somewhere.
He's always lurking around.
Loz the lurker. Yeah, he smashing guy. Really is a lovely guy. Just likes to sleep on carpets at that point in time, didn't he?
Weird weekend. Really weird weekend.
So what I was going to ask was, how long does it take to build sort of one of your average kind of prop sets?
So this is a really difficult question to answer because such as my kind of, yeah, thanks. So if we built what we wanted to from start to finish with a plan and all that kind of stuff, a medium-sized set like the Last of Us one that we do would probably take us from start to finish, from concept to finish thing, a couple of days if we had the materials, and we just crack on and get on with it. The problem lies in that the Last of Us set that we built started off as a Resident Evil set. So I had this concept for this kind of bricked alleyway from the games where they're kind of running through and you're going up the fire escape and stuff. And this was the vision and the concept that I had in my mind. So that's what we started with. And I got a big piece of board and we put brick paper on it and kind of dirtied it up and stuff like that. And then about a third of the way through that, I was like, this actually looks more like an abandoned building from The Last of Us. So, and this is what happens then. So everything kind of morphs, and we joke a lot when it's set building time that Chris has literally stood with a drill in his hand like, what now? What do you want me? You know, he doesn't start anything because he knows 10 minutes in I'm going to go, actually, no, can we do this and can we add that? And yeah, so it's a difficult question in the sense that I'm a difficult person to work with when it comes to creative endeavours. I have a million ideas a minute and sometimes I try and do them all at once, and it can be difficult sometimes. But if we've got the materials and it's a clear-cut concept, we will just crack on a weekend when the kids are away, and we'll just spend a weekend at the unit and get it done.
So how many sets would you say you have now? Like, say I was going to say to you, right, everything you've got, put it out, you know, like set up your sets. Have you got, because I've seen a couple of them. I think it was the Hellraiser one I saw at HorrorCon. Was it the Hellraiser one?
Yeah, so we had the Hellraiser one, we had the Crystal Lake, and then we've got a smaller Resident Evil lab sort of setup with like a surgical curtain and a trolley and a like a cachet and stuff like that. So we've got the Hellraiser is probably the biggest set piece that we've got. We don't tend to move that about too much because it's just so heavy and it's it's a lot of work to move it. And that's one that we actually bought from Loz. So that's an old set that he built years ago and that we had our eyes on from the minute we saw it pretty much. And he was downsizing some stuff and having a clear out, and so we were like, yeah, we'll have that. So that's set up in our studio, and we use that more as a static prop so people come to take pictures on it and things like that, because it is a bit of a pain in the butt to move. So that's the biggest one. And then they all tend to be kind of standalone bits and bobs, if you like. So we've got an Annabelle, like a Raggedy Ann Annabelle in a box that Chris built, like a replica from the Warrens Museum. So we have that. That's going to be added to this year. So normally she's just stood on her own on a plinth sort of thing. This year we're adding, I've got a Valak, a really good Valak costume. So we're going to put that on a mannequin and have like a whole kind of conjuring sort of thing going on. We've also got, so we've got the Last of Us one, which changes. Sometimes it's like a stand-up, like a barricade with a mannequin with a clicker on it. Sometimes it's like the wall backdrop. There's a few different variations of that. Then we've got the Resident Evil themed kind of lab setup. And then we've got loads of just sort of apocalyptic zombie kind of like big oil drums and barricades and wooden planks, barbed wire, just all kinds of stuff that we can put on pretty much anything and kind of apocalypse it up, if you like. Yeah, so those are our main ones, and then just tons of fake limbs and, the usual sort of stuff.
Yeah, usual stuff, stuff that get you arrested if you had a car full of them, that, yeah.
I have got a funny story about that, to be fair. So we'd been to an event and I had a load of stuff in the boot, including some like fake legs and severed arms and the usual kind of stuff that we have. And then they were doing some routine vehicle checks in Heywood, and I was driving through and they pulled all the cars into the Iceland car park, and I was like, oh my God, I've just remembered what's in the boot. So he opens the boot, there's copper and there's all these arms and legs and stuff, and a head in there and stuff. He just sort of looked at me and I was like, I know that they're not real, but I feel like I need to explain why they're in there. So I told him what we do for business. And then he was like, oh, that's really cool. And he was really interested and wanted to know more about it. So yeah, so it can be a bit hazardous sometimes when you don't get to the unit straight after a gig and you're driving around for a week with a load of severed limbs in your boot.
I don't see a problem with it myself, but I'm not really normal. What can people expect from HorrorWood if they'd never been before?
People can expect a really nice atmosphere. This is not just me kind of saying, that's what we do. The feedback has always been the same for the last couple of years. The feedback has always been that it's one of the friendliest conventions that people have been to, because we're only small and we want to keep that kind of vibe, And someone said, I was posting some stuff on Instagram the other day, and someone said, I can't wait to come back. It's my third year coming back, and it's like meeting up with family. And I just thought, yeah, that's what we want. That's the kind of atmosphere we want. So first and foremost, that's what I would say to people. They're going to get a really nice atmosphere, and they're going to get a chance to kind of feel a part of it. I want people to interact with everything that we've got as much as possible and feel that they're as much a part of the show as the people behind the scenes building the stuff. You're also going to get some stuff that you just won't expect to see anywhere else. So the Scream team that we use, Murder House Productions, they get about the country. Most people will have seen them at an event somewhere. They do like a conga every now and again, and so just randomly there'll be like a line.
I know what you mean, Nancy.
Yeah, but they did it at Horrified, if you remember. Yeah, and they started, the first time they'd ever done that was at the first HorrorWood. So they have a boom box and they kind of, dancing around and stuff. So, and you're going to get a chance to join the back of the conga if you want, with some of your favourite horror characters. And I don't think you really get that anywhere else. And that's what we mean by this sort of family kind of feel to it. You can jump on the activities that are going on, and you can get involved, and you can really feel like you're a part of the event. And we have a tattooist as well. We've got a group of tattooists that have been with us for the last couple of years. He actually does all the artwork for the posters, the tattoo guy. So we've been friends with them for a few years. So you can get tattooed on site. You can join a horror conga. You can buy some awesome stuff. we work really hard to make sure that the stalls and the traders are unique and it's not oversaturated, because I hate going to a convention, as Comic-Cons especially now, it's just full of tat. They're just so full of tat, and I hate it because it's not fair. It's not fair to people that are working hard to source, official merch, and people that are opening up those lines of trade, and people that are spending weeks before I'm making things by hand, and they're being kind of undercut by people that aren't doing that. So I do my best as much as physically possible to avoid that from happening. So you're likely to see some stuff that you've probably never seen before.
It's always, I think it's one of these things as a trader and seeing it, you see it from both sides. So that's always a great kind of view to have. But it's always nice to know that someone has that kind of opinion and they can see what's occurring, the ripples that are being sort of made, and there's not a lot of education in the ways of people understanding licensing, people understanding the difference between fan art or buying something off a drop shipper and then thinking it's okay to resell it, which technically there's nothing against it. It's more if it's legal. If it's not,
it's a minefield, isn't it?
Yeah, and I don't condone it, because for me, as someone who has spent this will be my 18th year as Bleeding Marvelous, I could have had a child. But no, I'm going to get taxed now. Oh, politics. Yeah, Mike. Oh, the ghost of Mike. Yeah, I just, I don't. It's seeing like the iterations of how people have like changed how they sell and changed how they think that what the people want, and that's fine. But in the same vein, it's sad to me that we finally settled somewhere as a business where I feel happy, and we're trying to, we import the majority of our stuff from the US and from different countries, and we started speaking to a lovely lady in Australia who makes these really individual sort of phone pop sockets. And
I saw you posted one on your Facebook.
Yeah,
it looks amazing.
Yeah, we're working with her. She's going to do us. I think she's called Dry McQueen Artisan, and she's going to be making us a load for the following year. So we're now trying to look at working with people. She's based in Australia, so I mean, we're really trying to look around every corner and under every rock just to find something different. We want people to get value for money. Firstly, we also want people to be able to find that thing that is different that they don't see 20 of. So we tend to steer away from large lots of like NECA figures or things like that. I try and cherry pick the things that I like personally and curate sort of this whole thing that if I was to go into a show, would I like it? Now, I know my taste isn't everybody's taste, and there's going to be things on there that I don't necessarily like as much as others, but there's always going to be people that love that stuff. So it's just nice to hear someone who's an organizer of an event that is very aware of how hard how long it takes to, not only for someone like me who's a buyer inner, but somebody else who like has to make everything from scratch, and how it takes weeks, months for some people to prepare for a show.
Yeah, it's something that I've felt quite passionate about, because the whole point of what we did was to bring something to our local community that it didn't have, and nobody seemed interested in providing. So for us to then start flooding it full of stuff that didn't fit that vibe and didn't fit that kind of community, homegrown, grassroots sort of feel, it's just wrong. I couldn't do that. And I couldn't sell an event knowing that, under the table, I'm just filling it full of whatever and taking money off people for the sake of it. It's not. Anyone that knows us will know that HorrorWood is a passion project. Yes, we're a limited company, and I've gotten a meeting with my accountant next month, and he's going to look at me and go, "What are you doing? What is going on?" Because we don't make loads of money on horror. We cover the costs of the event, and that's a choice that we've made as a business to make it accessible to as many people as possible. We've been traders in the past, and we've been to events where you're paying hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of pounds for a weekend pick. No guarantee you're going to make that money back. And if the organisers aren't worth their salt, it's actually even harder to do that because the whole event is disorganized and all these factors that are out of your control. So you just losing money, and it's not something we ever really wanted to do. And it's interesting, like you said, you buy in stuff and you sell stuff that you would like to see. That's the same with HorrorWood. I wanted to put on an event that I would like to go to, and I was in the back of my mind is always, if I walked through the door and I saw X, Y, and Z, how would I feel as a customer? Would I enjoy this event? Would I feel that I'd paid too much for a ticket, or that I wasn't getting value for money, or whatever? So that's the real essence of what we do. And so then when a big part of your event is a traders hall or a traders area, to kind of drop that moral because you want to make some table fees is just so stupid. It's not something I could ever buy into. So, and that probably means, in fairness, we're never going to make a lot of money doing what we do, but that's how it is. And it's not about that. If we can cover the cost of the event and we can put on a good event and we can go to sleep at the end of it knowing that we did as much as we could to make it a community event, then I'm happy with that. And it sounds really cliche, but it's a fact. It's just the way we are, the way we do things. And I wouldn't swap it for, if someone said, oh, here's £1 million and we'll buy the HorrorWood rights off you, but it's not going to be in Heywood anymore, and we're going to fill it full of, Temu resellers. So then I would genuinely have to have a real long, hard look at my life and decide, whether my morals meant more to me than £1 million.
You'd be forgiven, I'm sure, but that's not the point. Yeah, no, I have a question here that a lot of people really want to know, especially Sammy and Lee, and is the scare maze coming back?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it is. So the scare maze, Chris is going like bigger in the background. So we didn't have a scare maze the first year. We had the scare actors, but they would just kind of roam in and doing their thing. And so last year we wanted to give them more of a platform. So we built like a scare walk. So we utilised the entrance corridor and a couple of the changing rooms that we kind of decked out with stuff, and they were two very separate scare zones and a blacked out corridor that you could walk through to get into the main event if you wanted, but there was another way in if you didn't fancy that. And people loved it, and the feedback was that they wanted more of that, and the Murder House guys wanted to do more of it because they had a blast. So we're going forward. We're building a full-size scare maze this year. Arguably, this is the biggest part of the whole event, really, for us from an organisation point of view and a kind of building point of view. So in previous years, we've utilised the meeting rooms that are in the sports hall for things like Q&As and stuff like that, but it's not really worked because sometimes people didn't know it was there and they didn't want to come out of the main hall, and so it never really worked properly, I felt. So we get that as part of the hire of the hall. So we thought, why not just turn that into a scare maze? So we've got a decent space. Basically, we're going to fence it off. We've got a ton of fence panels. The chain link, like security fencing, big 6-foot ones.
The stuff you rattle and scare the crap out of people.
Exactly that, yeah. So it's a really easy thing to kind of build some atmosphere with, and we're gonna tarp it up, and it's gonna be quite dark in there, and we've got a lot of our sort of post-apocalyptic stuff that we're going to board up some of the fence panels with. So so the scare maze is coming back, boy. It's going to be bigger, much bigger, and it's going to be like an actual walkthrough of a maze with a few different themed sections. So I'm really looking forward to that. It's something that people ask for, and we've managed to provide it. So hopefully it goes down well.
Well, Chris here, not your Chris. He is yet to understand the magnitude of how much he's got to deal with Sammy going through it after lunch.
I bring some earplugs, Chris. That's what I do.
Yeah. I heard it was an event. It was entertainment. In fact, we could just scrap the scare maze and just play the footage back if we had it of Sammy. That would be great. We just put it up on a big projector and that would be entertainment enough. But they made me go through it as well, and I always avoid it because I don't know, it's one of those weird things. I love scare mazes, and we go to Journey to Hell at Blackpool and and all these kinds of things, and I love it. But when it was my own event, I didn't want to put myself in that frame of mind because I was like, I need to be on the ball here. Anyway, towards the end of the day, as it starts to quieten down a little bit, they're like, come on, and of course, because they knew I was coming through, they really went to town, and it was an experience.
There is some footage knocking about. I'll see if I can dig it out. I might embarrass myself and let people see what they did to me in that changing room.
That sounds ominous.
Yeah. It involved a surgical trolley. Yeah. Anyway.
Not everybody can say that. I'm sure there's many people that can, but not very many in the grand scheme of things. So I hear somebody has taken on another job as a radio DJ.
Yes. So I do a lot of work for charity.
Charity.
Charity, man. Yeah, I love it. I absolutely love it. This for me is something that's just for me. It's an hour a week of something that's so totally self-indulgent. It's something I've always wanted to do. And when the opportunity came up, I thought there's no way I will regret it forever if I turn it down. So yeah, it's just a hell of an experience, and I really enjoy it. So I go on a Friday for an hour, 2 till 3 on a Friday on like a local community radio. And my job, my experiences in healthcare, I've worked in nursing for 15 years. So my radio show is a world apart from my horror and that kind of stuff. It's all about health and well-being and like community initiatives and stuff like that. So yeah, it's totally different to what people would expect me to do. But I absolutely love it. And it's half term, so I've got my son coming on the radio with me tomorrow, which is going to be super entertaining. He's got a lot to say for himself as Oscar. He has Tourette's and he has ADHD, and it was about giving him that platform to talk about what that's like as a little boy. So yeah.
So, have you prepped some movies that you hate to love? Have you?
Yeah, when you asked me, you messaged me before, didn't you, and said like just something to think about. So I've literally been thinking about it all day. It's difficult when, like, my favorite genre of horror is zombie movies. So there's a lot of so bad they're good movies to choose from in that arena. So I nailed it down to one, which I've watched loads of times, and it's terrible, but it's great, and that's Cockneys versus Zombies. So I don't know if you've seen it. Yeah, I love it. It's for your average kind of horror fan, I suppose it's just naff, but I think it's great. It's entertaining, really entertaining, and I love it. And to be fair, there's some great cast in there. There's some real great old boys in there that have done the tread the boards and really got their acting chops, and now they're doing this like terrible zombie film. So yeah, that's one of them. And then one that I was chatting to someone about the other day, it seems to be quite divisive between horror fans, and it was In a Violent Nature. So I loved that film. I just loved it. I thought it was brilliant. I thought the concept was brilliant. It was well executed. The cinematography was just out of this world. I loved the movie. And it's got one of the best kill scenes I think I've ever seen in any horror film. It was fantastic. The yoga girl on the cliff edge. So and I loved it. I thought it was brilliant. I speak to a lot of people about horror a lot of the time, and most people hate it. One guy that I know said it was like a walking simulator. He just didn't get the point of it. Another guy was like, well, he got his steps in at least, didn't he? And so it's a bit divisive, I think. Not a lot of people enjoyed it. I thought it was brilliant. I loved it.
Do you, when you say you picked a horror movie that was your all-time favourite, could you name an all-time favourite movie?
I could. Yeah.
It's a difficult question for any kind of fan of any genre. If someone says to you, pick your favourite, it's like picking your favourite child. You can't do it, because one day it might be this, the next day it's that. But as of today...
Yeah. I think because I've been talking about it again today, this particular movie, and it does, you're right, absolutely, it changes depending on your mood and depending on what you've watched recently, and if you're in that frame of mind for that type of movie, your favourite can change hour by hour sometimes. But one of my favourites that I go back to time and time again, and I could probably watch endlessly, is the remake of Dawn of the Dead. So the early 2000s version with Ty Burrell.
The Zack Snyder one.
Yeah, it's a brilliant film. I mean, the original's fantastic, and that's got some great performances, and it's a real kind of it's one of those movies that if you like zombie movies, people feel really passionately about the Romero stuff, you know. So and I kudos to that film. The original Dawn of the Dead is fantastic, but for me, the remake it just had something a little bit more. I don't know if it is more like a not a generational thing, but the way it was styled because it's a more modern movie. Maybe I don't know if that's what the difference is, but yeah, I've watched it literally dozens of times, and I never get bored of it. It's a great film.
I think the thing, if it is, you are talking about the Schneider one, aren't you? Because that's the one I think people get really hung up on it being Zack Schneider, and they, instead of taking a step back and looking at the casting, looking at the pacing of the film, looking at the practical effects, looking at the film as a whole, they do a great job of keeping the original themes there.
Yeah,
so you still have the rooftop, you still have them trapped in the mall, you still have the goodies and the baddies and the twist of who you think is going to be the people that you want to follow and the ones you're not, and you're rooting for certain people to survive and then you want the others to die, and you still got all that within it. And it's not a spoiler when we say that the baby scene was something that I think at the time was kind of really not shocking. If you're a horror fan, you're used to seeing weird shit, but like it was kind of a bit eye-opening for people who were going to see what they thought might have been a casual horror film, and they were getting something kind of like that. And I think I really enjoyed it because you have that whole thing where, was it Ving Rhames? It was Ving Rhames with the sign, and he's communicating to the guy at the gun shop over the thing.
Yeah.
I just remember, because obviously I think Savini worked on the original, or there was, do you know what I've done?
Yeah, he was a member of the biker gang that raids them all in the original movie.
Yeah, and he falls off he did his own stunt, didn't he, where he fell off down 2 stories onto the cardboard boxes. I will always be a fan of the original, because I always think, you know, when there's source material, there's ways of reinterpreting it or reimagining it or revisiting it that you can do with respect. And you can, like the Guillermo del Toro Frankenstein, for example, he's taken his version that he wanted to make, he's looked at the originals, and he's gone his own way with it. So you can't really compare it to any of the others. It's just the character. But then you've got the controversy with something like Wuthering Heights at the moment, where I know that's not horror, but the amount of slating that film has got, because the source material wasn't technically looked into. And I mean, the book is something like, I'm going to get slated for this because I can't remember when the book was wrote. It's 1700s, so I want to say 1800s. And
that sounds about right.
Apparently the lady that directed it read the book when she was 14, and she's now in her late 30s, and she hasn't read it since. And then there's this adaptation, and she's directed it, and it's so incorrect in the storyline, and it's incorrect in the presentation, and it's like, okay, at what point do you give a director artistic license to do a version of their own? And you know what I mean? It's one of those things. How do you stand on reboots or redos? Or
I have no issue with them whatsoever. You know, as I've said, the remake of Dawn of the Dead is one of my all-time favorite movies, but because it's close to the source material enough for you to know what they were trying to do. And I think that's the important thing. You're never going to be able, and for me, I think really, if they had tried to, you know, scene for scene recreate the original, I'd probably hated it because it's overlooking the source material in the original one that's so beloved by people. So the fact that it had that familiarity, that nostalgia, but it was a film in its own right, that's when it's done right. And that's when you get these films that are sometimes more popular and more loved than the original because of the way it's been handled. But you've got to have a level of respect for the original. I think if you're going to attempt any kind of remake, reboot, whatever you want to call it, you've got to have a level of respect for the original. You've got to understand the original to be able to do it justice. In this example about this Wuthering Heights, as you're saying, you've read a book once in school as part of an English lit project, never touched it again since, and gone, I'll make a movie about that. Not really understanding how well loved that material is, and not understanding what you need to do to do it justice. Because what you're really doing then is taking the title of something and slapping it on something completely unrelated, and I hate that. It doesn't do anything for me at all. So there's got to be an element of familiarity, and you've got to feel like the director at least understood the original and wanted to pay some kind of homage to it without trying to be, up its backside of, we love this movie and it's amazing. So yeah, it's a bit of a fine line, but artistic license, I think, is one of those things where, you can give people way too much creative freedom in that sense, because they're not staying true to what the whole point of the project was in the first place. And then it doesn't become a remake or a reboot, it just becomes a retitling of whatever. So yeah, it can be done, and it can be done really well. I think Nosferatu had a similar problem, didn't it? The Skarsgård one, a very similar problem, because it's such a well-known and iconic, and that's the thing when you're messing with stuff that is so iconic and was such a kind of a groundbreaking thing at the time, and you recreate that in a totally different way and don't do it justice. Yeah. People are going to get upset, of course they are.
I think the thing with Nosferatu was Robert Eggers is known for his cinematics. So when you watch Nosferatu, the actual setup, the cinematics of the whole thing, the shots are breathtakingly beautiful. He knows how to light a room. He knows how to frame the actor. He knows how to do all of those things. But what I felt was massively lacking was plot in Nosferatu, because when you watch the original, the Max Schreck version, there's not really much to it. It's short for a reason.
Yeah.
There's no substance. So when you take that original source material and think, right, how can I move on and make that my own? You really don't need to do a 2.5 hour movie of something that was possibly about 50 minutes to an hour and 10, at the time, and had no dialogue in it. So you were using the silent kind of freeze frames of the little bits of dialogue that you did get. And then you're writing in a whole entire thing, and you're expanding on it to a degree at which none of it made sense, really, in the grand scheme of things. And then you sat there going, it was a beautiful film, but I couldn't tell you what actually happened in it when you watched the end of the one. It's like I've never been so bored in my entire life, but kind of entertained at the same time because of the shots, costuming, and just the movie as a whole, stunning. The actual dialogue and the plot points, boring as hell. And I know I'm going to get slated for that. Sorry, Zara, sorry, because I know you loved it, but yeah,
it's difficult, isn't it? When you feel like you understand the director's playing to his strengths, and you understand that, as you said, cinematography wise and staging wise and lighting wise, a great movie technically is probably the word I'm looking for. So it's technically a very good film, and film students will pore over it for years to come, the shots that he's made, and the shadow work and all this kind of stuff, and that's great, but not a great movie. That's the difference. Technically it's a good movie, but for movies as an entertainment source, not a great movie. And yeah, it is divisive, and I know there's a lot of people who'll be screaming at this when they see it, like, oh, how can you say that? It was this and it was that, and it's like, yeah, I had the same issue. And I know we briefly chatted about this, you, Sammy and I, about the monster, the Ed Gein story. I have a very similar issue with that, in that the source material, Ed Gein, as far as serial killers go, is pretty boring. There's not a lot to his story. And he wasn't really, and people go mad at me when I say stuff like this, but unless you watch that kind of stuff and you're into it, you understand. He wasn't on the scale of serial killers. It wasn't that bad. What the stuff that he did wasn't. It's what they found at the house at the time was so shocking to the small town America. And I get that. And what he did was awful, and it was heinous, and the desecration of those graves is a terrible, terrible thing. But it's not the story they tried to create around that in the Ryan Murphy Monster series was so far off the wall that, you talk about artistic license, and they basically just made up an entire faction of his life that never happened. didn't exist. And
Yeah.
it was so misinformed. And that's because they tried to make, what was it, 8 episodes, 8 and 9, something like that, I can't remember. Tried to make like an 8-episode series over like an hour's worth of documentary. And you can't, it doesn't work. You can't do it. And then all you're doing is adding all this extra kind of glamour almost, and totally changing. And that for me is more disrespectful than you know, retelling the original story. It's hard for the families, if there are still existing members of those families, to hear.
Yep.
But when you glorify it and you over dramatize it and you're adding all these elements that didn't even exist, you've no way of knowing whether he was like that behind closed doors in his family. Nobody knows. And yeah, artistic license is one thing, but that for me just sounds like, what on earth am I watching? This is terrible. And then because I do enjoy a lot of the documentaries, and I read a lot of books on serial killers, and I love the kind of psychology behind it all. I know a lot about those kinds of people, and so when you're seeing something that's being really, really Hollywoodized, I just thought it's wrong. He didn't do that. That never happened. She wasn't who she said she was. And so the whole series, I was just like, no. And yeah, and I ruined it for myself. I think I'd have just gone into it expecting something Ryan Murphy-ish, then I'd have probably enjoyed it. But yeah.
I think my biggest issue, and I think I've covered this with Sammy quite a lot about Ryan Murphy, is AHS. He paved the way when he did the first season. We'd seen nothing like that on telly as a television series. It was not necessarily groundbreaking, but it was a movie a week.
Yeah.
You know, you were getting these like horror for us. We were getting to consume something, you know, that we could have. And it was so confusing, but great. And you were gripped. And the first season was unlike anything. And then it got to about season, I dropped off at Roanoke. I still watched it. But then I started to lose interest. And as it got to, I can't remember the one with Russell in it, where it was all the clubs he went to. He was I didn't watch that one. I didn't watch the one with the spiders with Kim Kardashian and Emma Roberts.
No.
Yeah. And I don't know. Beauty, however, I did watch. I liked the concept of it because it was completely made up out of nowhere, along with AHS. I like the idea that when he uses his mind, it's hard to reconcile that he did Glee as well for me. I'm like, how can you go from Glee to AHS?
Such a juxtaposition in it, in what he does. And when he gets it right, and when he's more true to what he wants to put out there, that's when you get good TV. And the original series of AHS, like you said, was unlike anything. And as a horror fan, it was something that you could genuinely look forward to every week. You were like, this is what's gonna, you know, where's it going? And we'd be having like email chats that you know, in work after the week, like, oh, you know, what do you think this guy is, and who do you think he's come from? And and I'd not had that from any kind of horror sort of stuff in a sequential show like that before, and I love it for that. I love the original series for that.
The minute he hits that kind of true crime thing, he did the Donatella, he did the Versace one, and then the O.J. Simpson one. I know about those two. Then we went on to the brothers, the Menendez brothers. He did the other one. Now I didn't watch any of these, because I watched one episode and then thought I can't, because I knew the stories fairly well, and I was like, okay, I know what he's doing. We get to Ed Gein, and I was all good until they cast Hunman. And once I saw Hunman from Grove, I knew it wasn't for me. I psyched myself out from watching it, because I knew it was going to be, let's make Ed sexy. Let's make the stinky guy that smelt like death, that never washed, that was 2'3", that was the creepy guy that everybody avoided in town, except for when they needed a babysitter. They were fine to leave them with their kids. But you know,
what's that all about?
Yeah, I will never know. I think it was the mental age situation.
Yeah.
A lot of them felt they were safe with him because he had kind of the same mindset, which, again, 50s America, I suppose. I don't know. But the minute you find out it was Charlie Hunnam, I was like, I can't, because this is the narrative you're going to get pushed. And lo and behold, one episode in, all the women thirst trapping Ed Gein. Isn't Ed Gein really gorgeous? I'm like, no, this is what he looks like. This is not gorgeous. It's a real thing. And I think with Ryan Murphy, he has this habit of picking very new. When I say new, okay, Ed Gein's 60 years, but still, it's new because there's still family relatives in kind of around. There's a possibility that there's still someone alive from when that happened, or they were a kid at the time. And especially with this new one, because from what I've heard, it's Aileen Warner's the next one. And I don't want that touched with a barge pole, because I feel like her story is an incredibly sad story. And whilst I think Charlize Theron did a great job in the movie, I think they did what they needed to do, and that should be just left there. You know, it was, we all found out about Aileen as the documentaries have come out, that her life was not one that anyone should ever have to live. And to have Sarah Paulson now play Aileen Warnes, when you know full well Lily Rabe would have been better at it, because he's already had her playing it in Hotel. But I don't know, I feel icky about that one as well, because I'm like, that was only 30 years ago. You know, it's like there's still people that have been affected by what she did, regardless of her circumstances. So again, are you going to disrespect the victims' families because you're going to put a sexy Aileen Warnes on the TV and like get everybody rolled up again? And I don't know. I find Ryan Murphy incredibly divisive, but a freaking genius at times. So
it's difficult, and it's so frustrating, because potentially the stuff that he puts out there as horror fans is it's gold, isn't it? Some of it, and then you see, it's difficult. It's a weird one, because out of all of the monster ones that he's done, for me, the Jeffrey Dahmer one was the best one.
I knew there was one in there.
Enjoyed that. And again, having Evan Peters play him was the right choice for the look of him and just for his talent. I mean, Evan Peters is mind blowing, and everything that he does, I love him. But there was still the element of, he's a bit of a heartthrob, I guess, and there was that kind of element of like, oh, you know, look at him with his glasses on, you know, and it was just like, do you know who Jeffrey Dahmer? Do you know what he did?
Yeah.
So and again, that was the 70s, so it's, you know, within our lifetimes when he did what he did, and it's still very recent for a lot of the families, so it's difficult. I think the Dahmer one, for me, I feel was handled fairly respectfully, and it was very true to, they didn't kind of glamorize it. They if anything, they really tapped into the deep-seated kind of social differences and racism of the time. They really did, for me, they did that justice, because that was, he'd have never got as far as he had done if the police had done what they were meant to do. And because of the type of people that he was picking, they weren't that interested. So I think they did a really good job of that, but the others seem to have just been a bit too Hollywood, a bit too kind of glamorized, and like you said, Sarah Paulson isn't the right choice. I think she's a great actor, but she's not the right choice. I would love to have seen more of the actress that played her in Hotel. What's she called? Can't remember.
Lily Rabe.
Yes, yeah. She was brilliant. She was really good for the few scenes that she was playing her. But again, like you said, does it need to be done? You know, did they really need to do that story? It's been told, and it's still affecting people now. So, you know, maybe leave it alone for a bit.
And this is where I think Ryan does muddy the water, because if you see Grotesquerie, I don't know if you watch that. I would recommend watching Beauty and Grotesquerie, because when they're his original stuff, he has a habit of being able to push it to a different level. Like with Grotesquerie, there's a few of these, it's kind of a bit like Seven, you know, where they set up these amazing kind of like scenes.
Yeah.
And like Hannibal, you know, where the Mads Mikkelsen TV series, where there's these elaborate kind of like showcases of action. disgustingness. Ryan has an ability to be able to do that in grotesquerie, although I still wanted more. So I do have an inner struggle with Ryan. I hate him for the not hate him, that's harsh, but you know what, I don't know the guy. Probably a lovely fella. But for the genuine kind of like serial killer real life stuff, I'm out. But for all the other stuff, I just think what he's good at pose was amazing. He highlighted so much stuff just through pose. I mean, Billy Porter, that's how he came onto my radar, and I absolutely fell head over heels in love with Billy Porter and MJ Rodriguez and all those guys, because they did, and Dominique, they just did absolutely amazing job showcasing, you know, the ballroom scene in the 90s, and, you know, how the HIV and AIDS crisis hit. And it just absolutely, he covered that so beautifully, and he handled it with respect, and everybody that watched it all said the same thing. It was done so well. But then he goes and does something like freaking Geen, and you're just like, get in the bin, get in the bin.
A bit of a love. It is a bit of a love hate. And I think, and it's kind of disappointing. Isn't even strong enough a word, because when you're getting into, like, if we go back to AHS, when you get into that, and some of those series were just brilliant. They were so good. And then it starts to tail off, and it gets like really just bonkers, and none of it makes any sense. And you feel like bereaved. You feel like this was something for us, and now we've lost it because you just messed it up. And you feel terrible. But having conversations about American Horror Story, I remember when I first started watching it, and I was trying to describe it to someone at work, and they were like, "Oh, what's it about?" And you can't explain. It's like, what is it about? You need to watch. You need to experience it. You can't give someone a synopsis of any of the American Horror Story stuff and expect them to get it. They have to experience it themselves. And not everybody loved it, did they? Not everybody loves the kind of the rubber suit guy. That was a bit divisive for some people. There's the I can't remember the name of it, but in the hotel, the demon thing with Sarah Paulson's character, that was really divisive for a lot of people. So he can push those boundaries, but I do believe that when it's, like you said, when it's his own original stuff, he pushes them just enough. He pushes them well, without kind of disrespecting anyone else's livelihoods and stuff. So yeah, he's a funny one, Ryan Murphy. He can be absolute gold and absolute dirt at the same time.
So
sorry, Ryan, if you're watching.
Yeah, sorry, Ryan. Don't sue us. We ain't got no money. Do you have a favourite horror director?
I don't think, in terms of directors, no, I don't think I do. There's never been one that I've consistently thought, well, I have to watch this because it's been made by XYZ. Performers, there's a lot of performers. It's more about the characterization of things. So as good as any director can be, if they've not got a good actor behind the character, then it's, their jobs are really hard. I think I got into a big habit of collecting John Carpenter stuff. So it's a bit not horror as such, but yeah, I collected a lot of his stuff, and The Thing is probably up there with my, if I had a top 5, it'd be quite high up that top 5 list. So his stuff is consistent for me, and I know I'm going to enjoy it if it's one of his movies. But generally, I just watch what I'm in the mood to watch at the time, and I do tend to go more for actors. If I've seen someone in something that I know I've enjoyed the performance, then even if I don't like the concept of the movie, I'd probably watch it because there's a good chance they'll do a good turn in it. So yeah.
So in terms of characterization, as someone who is well versed in the scare universe acting and behind the scenes of it all, is characterization of a character, obviously, Daniel, but is characterization something you tend to hone in on when you're watching a movie, or can you just let that go and just watch it? Or does that always take you out if you're watching a horror movie and then say the protagonist or antagonist are just dire, absolute dog crap? Does it make you angry?
Yeah, very much so. it can really. I don't think this is a de-immersify. I don't think that's a word, but you kind of lose that immersion if they're not doing a good enough job. And it's difficult because I think there's this concept that you don't have to be a good actor to be in horrors because it's just all blood flying about everywhere, and there's no real substance to it, and that kind of thing. And that's just not true. In horror, more so than in anything else, you've got to get the characters right. It's got to be someone that you either desperately want to survive or you really want to see die. Those are the things you're looking for in a good horror movie. And if you haven't got actors that are really getting that character across, then it kind of ruins the whole. It could be the best movie you've ever seen, but if the lead is not very good, then it's a bit of a kind of, I'd probably be scrolling through my phone while it was on in the background sort of thing. I'm not really in it, if you know what I mean. And there can be some of these really low budget, what a lot of people class as like proper crappy movies, but they've got some good talent in them. And so if that good talented lead actor or actress or big bad villain guy is really pulling you into the story, as low budget as it is, makes it a good movie, and it makes it something that you get involved in and you want to watch to the end. So yeah, it is a big part of any movie, not just horror, anything that I watch. You've got to see a good character, and something that you can get behind. For good or bad, you either love them or hate them, and it's important to do that. If you've got an actor that's just overselling it as well, and he's the douche, he's the guy who's gonna come good at the end because he's an arsehole now. Yeah, you've got to be. It's a fine line, and I'm no Academy Award winner, but I have spent a lot of time characterizing things and acting in those kinds of things, and yeah, it's nice when they get it right.
Do you have a few movie baddies that have become kind of like favorites to you? Like, I know people always go, "Oh, I love Michael," and it's like, yeah, okay, but why? Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Do you have like a specific couple that you really enjoy watching, because just more than because they just kill well? Do you know what I mean? It's like, I often find if you bring up Michael, people are always like, oh yeah, he's great, and it's like, but he's not really anything. He's just a guy who walks around and stabs people. That's what he does. And that's to say that he's not good at stabbing people, but really, that's his narrative. He's just...
There's no nuance to it, is there?
Yeah. So, I mean, do you look for like a more well-rounded story for your baddies, or do you just enjoy watching and seeing where it goes?
So, sometimes a bit of both. It can depend entirely what kind of mood I'm in. One of my favourite series of movies is the Friday the 13th movies. And so I am one of those people who go, I love Jason. And if you ask me why, I don't really have a reason. He's just cool. I just like him. He is what he is. So there's that element to it. If I'm in the mood to just kind of sit back and just watch something happen in front of me, then I will go to those kind of slashers where there's no real sort of backstory and you don't have to think about it too much. But I had an interesting conversation with someone the other day. So it's not a movie, but it's a TV series. Well, it was a comic book series first, but The Walking Dead. So for me, I love Negan. I'm a huge fan of his character. Not a huge fan of some of the stuff that he does, but I'm a huge fan of his character. And again, talking about portrayal, Jeffrey D. Morgan was perfect for me. I read the comics from day one and was so in love with the story and the characters, all of the characters. And then when he's introduced in the Something to Fear storyline, it was the first time I would genuinely had been reading something and had to kind of like recoil. I had to just some of the stuff that happens and the way that Negan's introduced, and his character for me, and they did an all right job of it in the show where you kind of see, his wife was poorly and all this kind of stuff. So, and it was quite well done. But if you haven't read the comics, anyone who's watching who hasn't read the Walking Dead comics, I urge you to, because they're brilliant. They're such good comics, and the stories are just incredible. And the TV show did a good job of that. But villain-wise, for me, it's this real strange mixture of, yeah, he was a bad guy, but was he the worst guy? Was he the worst guy they'd come across? And was he a bad guy for the right reasons? This is another thing. I always argue with people. if you had, so you follow the story from Rick and his team pretty much, don't you, from the start, and it's all about him getting back to his wife and his son and all the other stuff and the group that they build around them. And Rick's the hero of the story, basically. But he's not. Rick's not a hero anymore. He's not a good guy. He's not a good guy. And he makes people do really bad things that they wouldn't have done in his name. And I always argue with people, had we have followed Negan and the Saviors from the beginning, had the story started with him and his wife and what happened to her and all that, and we'd have followed them from the beginning, then you would have absolutely despised Rick and his team for what they did at the satellite station. You'd have hated them. They'd have been the biggest bad guys ever because, you know, Negan and his crew are just trying to survive and they're not really harming anyone at this point, and then they come in and murder everybody for pretty much no good reason, just so they don't murder them first. And yeah, so it's, for me, he's a classic example of he's a bad guy and he does some bad stuff, but he does it for the right reasons, in my opinion. And he's at each turn he's provoked. He wouldn't have gone so hard on them in Alexandria if Rick wasn't such a prick. You know, if he wasn't this self-righteous kind of, yeah. And Rick isn't a hero to me. Andrew Lincoln was great and he was brilliant and he portrayed him really, really well. And there's a lot of his team that are great, really good characters. But Negan as a villain has got so much more substance to him because he's not really a villain.
Weird. Because that's where I first got introduced kind of knowingly to Michael Rooker. I mean, I'd seen stuff but never really paid attention to him because obviously he was in Henry Portrait of a Serial Killer prior to being in many other things prior to being in that. But his portrayal of Merle, I've been told, is so, I haven't read the comic books. I do know of them and I haven't, you know, read the odd bit but not followed them from start to finish. But I've been told that Merle was portrayed really, really well as Daryl's kind of brother, and it was all very, that they made that start off like it was going to go somewhere, and then it just sort of,
that whole storyline is really good because it starts off, like, as you said, like something completely different to how they end up. And yeah, it's really well played. Rooker's brilliant. I love Michael Rooker.
Yeah.
And again, he was one of those characters that, yeah, he's a bit of a douchebag, but was it because he's had to look out for his little brother all his life? So that's, you know, is that why he was the way he was? And I love when they do that. There's some real substance to the characters because they're relatable people. They're not just these, like you said, Michael Myers is this kind of omnipresent stalking thing, and he's not. There's nothing else you know about him. There's nothing you can really delve into. But when they're very human characters and very real situations that people might find themselves in, you know, struggling to survive in certain places, and you can really delve into, you might know someone who's like that. You might be able to relate to that in the real world, and that's where horror gets real kind of immersive for me.
I think it's Robert Kirkman, isn't it, that wrote?
Yeah.
I mean, when you look at Invincible, which he also did, he could do a way of making you look at you're always looking at it from the good guy's perspective, but really, it's kind of this look over here because there's all this other stuff going on, and if it wasn't for this douchebag over here that you're supposed to really like, these people would still be existing the way they existed before. You introduce this goody two-shoes douchebag to the bunch of people that were perfectly happy before, and all hell breaks loose.
Yeah. I mean, and it just messes everything up for no good reason.
It really does, and I love the way that he handles that with Invincible, and it's very much a parody in a way of The Walking Dead. Whilst it's nothing like it, it's kind of like the formula.
Yeah,
you're supposed to like him, you're supposed to like, you know, he's the good guy, he's the hero, but they never are. And I love the fact when someone can take a character that's supposed to be good but also show you without blatantly telling you that they're a dirtbag, and you can see it, and you're trying to convince people and they don't see it, and then they have that moment where they wake up and you're like, I told you, bloody told you. You know,
it's brilliant, and it's such a clever thing to do, and very difficult to do as well, to give the audience that kind of in joke almost. They're giving you a glimpse. You figured it out, and so you know something, and you know something about this guy, and then when it's revealed to the wider audience in a more obvious way, you get that kind of like, I knew that. I knew. I'm up here.
Oh,
I knew. I knew all about you. I think in one of the ways that is done so well, more on the obvious side, there's no nuance to it whatsoever, is Homelander in The Boys. So he's, on the surface, he's this shiny blonde, cape wearing, flag flying, but he's not. And he gets more and more unhinged the more power he's allowed and the more chance he gets to indulge in things, and he gets more and more unhinged and gets to a point where there's no facade. He doesn't care. He knows he doesn't need to care because he's all powerful. He can do what he wants, and that's really well done as well. And he's a character that you just love to hate. I think he's brilliant. I'd take Homelander over Billy Butcher any day.
I think the thing about The Boys as well is that Eric Kripke is mostly known as, anybody who watches any kind of television for the last 20 years will know that Eric Kripke is responsible for Supernatural. Hence why you're seeing a lot of the same cast from the TV show in this, as well as obviously extras. But Eric Kripke did an interview which I saw with, I think Jensen was on there with him, and I want to say the guy who plays Homelander, Anthony
Starr.
Yeah, and they were talking about like pushing the envelope, and I think this was after like season 1 or 2, and they hadn't got to the scene of the exploding penis micro guy down the urethra whole situation, and they were alluding to something absolutely horrific happening in it, and the interviewer was like, well, how can you get any worse? So he's like, and this was at the end of season 2, and they were like, oh, we can get worse. Don't you worry. And I think that's a prime example of a studio trusting a director and giving them carte blanche to do what they want, knowing that it's going to be so batshit, and knowing that everybody's going to lap that shit up enough that they're going to do a spin-off of Gen V, which is working just as well. And that's going to start its own kind of thing, because obviously The Boys finishes after this season 4 or 5. I can't remember what we're on, but he does it so well. And I think that's I think he needs to run a masterclass with some of these guys that, are given a load of money and don't know what to do with it, and create something absolutely atrocious. He's the poster child for being given money and giving carte blanche to absolutely run away with the most bonkers freaking storylines, orgies, exploding body parts, just the most random things. And it's like, has anybody checked on this guy's psyche? I think he needs to just check in and just have a therapy session with somebody.
Yeah, evaluation recently, like what's going on with him. To be fair, it had to be that way. Again, it's one that I've read the comics before, years ago, and when I heard that they were doing a series, I didn't want to watch it. I was like, there's no way that you can translate what I've read in these comics onto TV and A, get away with it, and B, make it something for a wider audience. I thought there's no way they can do this, but I watched it just purely out of love for the source material, and absolutely just smashed it out of the park with what he'd done and how he'd done it and how much of it he was allowed to do, because the comics are just crazy. You don't know from one page to the next what the hell is going on, and it's so graphic and just nonsense in a good way. All this crazy stuff goes on in a really good way. And I think it's really interesting because when they cast, I can't remember the name of the guy who plays Huey.
He's Teeth's. Oh God, shit is full. It's his nephew.
Yeah, that guy.
Yeah, him.
It will come to you. So when they cast him, I was kind of like, he didn't look right to me, because in the comics, it looks a lot like...
That's him.
There you go.
Jack Quaid, yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Technical Wizard Man in the back, in the clouds. He didn't look right to me, because in the comics, I wish I had one to hand to show you, because there's a whole story on the inner page. It's the first one about he looks like Simon Pegg. Huey looks like Simon Pegg. and it was basically based on him. They do the whole interaction came about and whatever, and so it looks like Simon Pegg. So I knew that Simon Pegg wasn't going to play him in a TV show. He couldn't do. He was too old, and it just wouldn't have worked. But yeah, when they cast him, I was like, I don't know, he looks too young. Maybe it just it didn't feel right from what I'd seen in the comics. Anyway, from the get go, from the very first scene in the first episode, I was like, yeah, they've nailed this. He's spot on. He's got the character. So although he's not physically what I expected to see, the characterization was spot on, and that's what makes it work. Same with Anthony Starr for Homelander. There's nobody could have. It's like they pulled him off the pages of the book and turned him into a real life person. He does it so well, and you can always tell when people are fans of the source material. Like going back to Negan, I read an interview years ago when his agent called him about the job on The Walking Dead, and he said, "It's Negan. I know it's Negan. And I'm fucking doing it." You know, he was like, I know this book, I know this story, I know this guy, I have to play this part. So when they've got that background and they've got that passion for it, it just makes it so much better to see that come alive on the screen.
And it was such a huge phenomenon, The Walking Dead, when it came out. Like, Walker Stalker Con was something that came over to the UK in 2016. So I was there for the very first one, and I worked the very first one to the very last one. I think they ran for 3 or 4 years in London for the horrific blow up of egos, shall we say, that caused the whole thing to go into the stratosphere. I've never seen, to this day, after 10 years of doing shows, anything quite like the fans of The Walking Dead. I mean, I've never been to I've been told Once Upon a Time fans are also of a certain level, but The Walking Dead fans, at the height of the fame of The Walking Dead, when that came out, at the shows, you had everybody. You had Negan, you had Andrew Lincoln did the very, very first one, never did another one afterwards. I think it scarred him too much. Yeah, you had just every character was there, and they were just roaming around. And like, I was having conversations with Greg Nicotero because he was there. He was just randomly, and then he came over to us and the following year and went, "I remember you from last year. I did that." And we'd just stand and have chats with Greg Nicotero, and it's so strange because the phenomenon, the cues, the screaming. If bloody Daryl Dixon came to the Olympia in Hammersmith, you've got like this whole viewing platform. It's not a viewing platform, but it's like a stair kind of situation up the top where you can look down. And when him and Jeffrey Dean Morgan came to the side and looked down, he started squirting silly string over everybody waiting in the queues for the photos. And I've never heard anything like that in my entire life. I've heard a Rammstein concert. Do you know what I mean? I've literally been parked up waiting for Rob to come out. And that was supposed to be heard like a mile and a half away. No, I can assure you that Walking Dead Con was heard like 3 miles across London. It absolutely insanity. Just but it goes to show that you did something right. Yeah,
of course he did, and he got it. And like I said, a lot of people will have been going into the show with really high expectations because they've been fans of Kirkman's source material, and so to get it right for so long, it went wrong a little bit towards the end, and it got a little bit out of hand. But to get it right for as many series as they did, and so even to bring original characters in that fitted nicely into that world without feeling like they were just added in afterwards, was a beautiful thing. And it was another one that every week I was like, yes, this is something for me to really, really enjoy. And I loved how they switched it up a little bit, because some of the death scenes in the comics were so well known amongst the fandom. They had to do something a little bit different. And so the timeline they kind of messed about with. And a lot of the times I don't enjoy it when people do that. I like it to be fairly similar to the originals, but they had to in The Walking Dead, and they did it with sympathy, and they did it with the fans in mind, and they did it as fans themselves. So it worked. And everything fitted nicely, and some standout performances. And it's something that Chris and I go back to every now and again. We'll watch a couple of seasons. It's like a comfort thing. So it was good. It was really well done, and I'm sad that it's finished. I haven't got into any of the spin-off stuff. I just cannot get on board with any of it. I say that actually, we did watch The Ones Who Live, the Rick and Michonne kind of where they managed to find each other, and it was bloody awful. It was terrible. I did not enjoy any of that. It's like the characters weren't the characters. They kind of become like caricatures of themselves, and yeah, I didn't like it at all, and I wouldn't rush to watch it again.
If there was one genre of horror you could put in the bin, which one would it be?
Found footage.
I don't know why I knew you were going to say that. I had a feeling you were going to say that.
I cannot stand it. It does nothing for me. I don't like it. I don't understand what all the fuss is about it. I don't like it. From the very first kind of real kick-off of that genre with the Blair Witch, I went to see it. I was at college at the time. I was with a few mates. We went to see it at the cinema. I've never been so bored in the cinema in all my life. It didn't do anything for me. It didn't scare me. And I felt like I was on another level compared to the general population in the cinema. This is going to make me sound like I'm proper up my own ass, but I genuinely felt like there were people in that cinema that believed this was real. There were people in there that had bought into the marketing, which was clever. It was good. It was, something that we'd not seen before on that level. There were people in that cinema that genuinely believed that this was footage that was found, and we were about to see what actually happened to these people. And I remember sitting in the cinema thinking, well, what? Like, what are you talking about? It's clearly a marketing ploy. It's clearly a made movie with a budget and actors. And I just didn't. And I think because I disliked it so much, found footage for me ever since, it's just been there's a handful, 2 or 3 movies maybe in that genre that I've enjoyed watching. The Hell House movies, the first Hell House movie, I really enjoyed it for what it was. And then there's one that's, whenever I mention it, no one's ever heard of it, but it's called Digging Up the Marrow, and it's done in a documentary style, and it's got I can't remember the name of the guy. He played the devil in something. It'll come to me in a minute.
Peter Stormont.
No, it's
I'm trying to think of devils in my brain. My brain's going, devils? Who plays devils?
Show. It will come to me. It will come to me. My menopausal brain somewhere in this fog is in there. I will find it. Who? Yes,
Twin Peaks, Ray Wise, yeah.
That's exactly who it was. And so he plays this guy that has this experience in this small town, and it's like a conspiracy amongst the local townspeople. There's monsters out in the woods, basically, is the upshot of the movie, but it's how deep he goes into that. And it's called Digging Up the Marrow because that's how it's explained to him when he's doing research. This guy said, when you're in your allotment or you're out in the field, you see the very tip of the vegetable, but if you dig it up, there's this whole root underneath and this network of roots, and that's what it's basically is the premise of it. And it's one of for a found footage movie. I know who Ray Wise is. I mean, Kane Hodder's in it. Kane Hodder is interviewed as Kane Hodder on this like fake podcast that they've developed for the film. So there are people that you know and that you recognise, that you know are actors. So you know it's not real. But I don't know what it was about this movie, and you might watch it and go, yeah, that was a load of crap. You don't know what you're talking about. But it was one of those movies that I watched it and it stuck with me for so long. So like I'm talking years since I watched it. And in the back of my brain, there's a few little things that play over every now and again, and it gives me the shivers. And that is great cinema. If it can do that to you, so much time has passed. And it was a really low budget thing. And like I said, no one I speak to, I might have even dreamt it. It might not even be a real movie, But what I think I witnessed was a damn good film. So, and that was a found footage style. And it is one of the only ones that I've ever enjoyed. The rest of them can just get to France. I'm not interested.
Do you have a favourite final girl? Or do you think... I was just like, is the concept of a final girl moot to you?
Yeah, it's a little cliche, isn't it? I think, I don't know. for someone who's such a fan of 80s slashes, you'd think I'd be all over this subject, wouldn't you? Because that is the lifeblood of those movies. Like, oh, Mr. Killerman, oh, I fell over in the woods, oh no, and all that kind of stuff. So, but yeah, I kind of don't like I don't like a final girl. I don't. I just think a lot of them have only survived by sheer chance, not by any kind of will or nous that they've got. It's just sheer chance that everyone else was slower or more stupid than they were. So I've never really got into it. But yeah, I think there's a couple. And although I'm not a massive fan of the franchise, Sydney Prescott seems to be hanging on in there, doesn't she? So she's probably the queen of the final girls for that kind of stuff. But it's not something I really buy into. I think I'm my favourite final girl because I've made it to 44 years old so far with everything else that's happened in my life. So yeah, I'm a final girl, and I'm okay with that.
That makes me your grandfather's girl because I got two on you, love. But yeah, the concept of a final girl, I think in the 80s was great because you wanted the character to root for, because you always had to have the dichotomy of the good and the bad. And I think that came down to the morality thing that was heavily featured in the 80s of don't have sex, naughty, because you're going to die. So they always wanted to have the virgin type character, and craft this whole idyllic, wonderful, very good girl that's going to survive. I would have loved it if just for one movie they kill that one off and the slutty one wins. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. There's never that opportunity.
Like the real life person that that snuck out when the parents were asleep and all that kind. Yeah, they're all bad guys.
I would have liked a big budget movie to pull off something like that. Like I think that's why I really enjoyed. We covered it on here last year. The Final Girls, with like Nina Dobrev and Vera Farmiga.
Yeah, I enjoyed that. I enjoyed that a lot.
Yeah, and it's so well done. And like I say, I am in love with the way that they shot that film and the colorization of that movie. Yeah. And I will talk about that till the cows come home, so I will shut up now.
Yeah, no, it's a great movie. I did enjoy that a lot.
The concept of it is a piss take in itself, and I just love the fact that they all had the cliche characters, but they were leaning into it to such a degree that it worked. And it makes you sit back as someone who's watched horror for so long and you just go, oh God, yeah, that's definitely, she's Friday the 13th. You can list the movies that the cliches are coming from. And I do enjoy the concept of a final girl because you know what you're going to get, but I always I want to mix up. I want something to happen, and I find that lacking to a degree. How many? Go on, sorry.
I was just going to say, because like historically those kinds of movies, especially 80s slasher sort of stuff, it's that written by men for men, and that kind of characterization. I guess that's why I didn't like a lot of those sort of final girls, because they were too obvious. They were too, you knew that it was a man's idea of what a heroine should look like. So I didn't really buy into it. I guess you've got Ellen Ripley as well, haven't you? She's a heck of a final girl. Yeah, but it's not something I really buy into.
No, I think for me, the only example of a final girl, which I kind of think is a twisted example, is Sleepaway Camp.
Yeah.
I think that is the kind of thing that I like, that twist of, oh, hang on a minute. Isn't what you think. Ta-da! Let's just leave it on this freeze frame for the entire end. Yeah. I liked that because I when you digest as much as we do as horror fans, because let's be honest, it's probably one of the most oversaturated markets for movies because they're so cheap to make, right? I say that, low budget movies, I'm talking about, and these are Chris's favourite, our Chris's. He loves absolute Z, bottom of the barrel, made on a 50p shoestring, and he finds them fantastic. And it's great.
It must be a Chris thing, because my Chris is the same. There's some of the shit he puts on. It's like, what have you put on now?
Honestly,
Kentucky Fried Zombies was the limit, I think, for me.
Have you seen that one, Chris? On the list, yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely a Chris thing because my Chris watches some absolute dross.
How many sequels in a franchise do you think is enough?
Again, it depends. It depends on the movie, doesn't it? Friday the 13th is one of my favourites, and if you count Freddy versus Jason, and then the new one with Jared, well, I say new, it's not that new, is it? But Jared Padalecki, there's like 12, I think, 12 of those, 12, 13 of those. That's a lot of movies, and from a cinema point of view, it's probably only about 4 good ones out of that that are good movies, and not just watching because you love the genre and that you love the franchise. I think 3 is about right. If you're gonna do it, I think you can't go wrong with a trilogy. Anything after that is just indulgence, and let's be honest.
Or first, yeah.
Yeah.
So, have you got anything you would like to advertise other than obviously the Distant Screams event, which I'll talk to the masses about in a sec.
No, that has pretty much been all consuming for me for the last sort of 6 months, so it's hard to get out of that frame of mind. No, the radio show is something I'm personally really proud of because it's so different to what people expect from me, and like I said, it's something I've always wanted to do. So, yeah, if you've got a DAB or a smart speaker or whatever, you can go on Roach Valley Radio. That's the station, and I'm on a Friday 2 till 3. It'd be nice to see people listening. There's also another really good show on that channel, on that station, that's done by a friend of mine, which is how I got on the station in the first place. And she does one on a Wednesday night called The Graveyard Shift, and hers is very much spooky, horror, ghost stories, all that really good stuff. So yeah, it's a good station, and they started out as hospital radio. They did a lot for the local community and still do. So that kind of feeds that bit of my soul as well. So if I was going to advertise anything, I'd say just give it a listen. Give my show on a Friday 2 till 3 a listen and see what you think. You might learn something about me that you didn't know.
Well, if you would like to purchase tickets to Distant Screams Presents HorrorWood, you can head over to, if you're on YouTube, there's a QR code there.
Yeah.
You can give that a scan and it will take you through to purchase some tickets, which I must say, bloody hell, Kim, they are very reasonable. When I look at the prices, that is something that you don't see that often. You're getting value for money there.
It's important to us, like I said right at the start, it's a community event. It's something that we wanted to bring to the community to make as accessible as possible. And we do that by not charging you a fortune just to walk through the door. I've never understood it. I've never understood why some of the bigger conventions do that, because they don't need to. The sheer volume of people that they get, they don't need to do that, to cover their costs. It's not about that. It's about making money, which I get. Companies need to make profit, and as I said, my accountant is going to look at me in about 6 weeks' time and go, "What? Why are you bothering? What is this ticket price? What is this all about?" But yeah, we cover our costs, and we donate to charity as well. Every year we've donated a portion of the ticket money to the Sophie Lancaster Foundation. That's something that's really important to us. And then last year and this year as well, we've got a rep from Andy's Man Club, because that, again, it's a really worthy cause, a really worthwhile thing to do. So they're coming and they'll make some money on the day for their charity. They've recently just opened a club in Heywood, and Andy's Man Club in Heywood. So it feels right for us to have them in, to get those kind of local people engaged. So yeah, the tickets are cheap, and every year I look at the prices and I think, can we do it? Can we do it for this amount? And yeah, we can. We can. We make it work. And I would hate to think that we were putting on an event in our own community that people that lived in that community couldn't afford to go to and just wouldn't see the point. And there's been times, I was a single parent for a while, and that financial strain, there's been a lot of times where there's stuff I would have loved to take the kids to that would have, been really engaging for them, but it was unaffordable. And it's not a nice way to feel, is it? It's not a nice feeling to think that you can't provide the things that you want to provide. So we keep it as cheap as we physically can, so that everybody can get involved. So £7.50 for an adult ticket. I mean, you can't even get on the tram to Bury for that. So yeah, it's we keep it as cheap as we can. We don't charge for under fives because realistically, how much space are they taking up and how much resources are they using when they're there. So we don't charge for under fives. And if it's a pre-bought ticket, kids are just £5 as well. So anyone up to the age of 16 is just £5, which I think is achievable for most families. Yeah, and it's important that we make it that way. It's never going to make us millionaires, but that's not what it's about.
I mean, this goes out on Monday, so people will hear this on the 23rd, I think is Monday's date. Forgive me, I don't have my calendar in front of me. But the con itself, the convention runs on the 28th of February, Saturday the 28th of Feb, and Sunday the 1st of March. Are you doing both days?
No, it's just the Saturday now. So originally it was a full weekend, but again, because we keep everything as kind of low cost as we can, it was getting to a point where can we put on one really good day for this budget or two all right days? And it was a no-brainer. The ticket sales were showing us that the Saturday was going to be by far the more popular day. Because historically it's been on a Sunday. The last 2 years we've done it on a Sunday, but when I looked at the numbers, Saturday had sold more. So yeah, the people that have bought weekend tickets all got a refund for the Sunday. And that way I know we can put on one really good day instead of two half-assed ones. So it's just the 28th.
Yeah, no, that's cool because Saturday's always a good day. It's a family day, really, isn't it? Sunday, kids are going back to school on the Monday, so you don't want to get them too hyped up because they won't go to bed. So
yeah, that is a problem. That is a problem. And plus, because it's in the sports centre as well, it's still open to the public. So the passing traffic on a Saturday, might work a little bit better for us. We've got a food vendor who's out in the main sort of foyer area as well. It's part of the convention, but there's a kitchen set up in the foyer. So if with it being on a Saturday, you've got all the passing trade from the public that are using the sports hall, and it's hammered out Heywood Sports Village all the time. We went, and did we go to measure up for the stage? Was it a Wednesday night, like a random Wednesday night at about 9 o'clock, and it was just packed. I didn't know there was that many people wanting to use a gym at that time of night, but there you go. So it's a popular venue, and so we're hoping that it being on a Saturday will give us that kind of walk-in, on the door trade as well. So you can pay cash on the door if you're not keen on committing to a ticket beforehand. You can rock up on the day and pay cash on the door. As with all these sort of things, it is more expensive if you do it that way because it doesn't give us any guarantees. So if you come in on the day, it's a tenner on the door. If you buy a ticket, it's £7.50. So there is quite a bit of a difference there.
And it's a Heywood Sports Village.
Yeah, so Heywood Sports Village on West Starkey Street in Heywood. It's right behind, there's a big Morrison's in the town centre, so it's really easy to navigate. It's right behind the Morrison's. They've got a huge car park, it's all free, unlimited. You can park there all day. It's not going to cost you anything. And like I said, there's a Morrison's over the road if you need a cash point, or you don't want the food at the venue. You can go and get some food from Morrison's if you choose to do so. But I suggest you do buy the food from the vendor because they're brilliant. They do like carnival food, so they're called freak show treats. And it's all, in fact, they were at HorrorCon where we were with you guys. That's where we met them. So they do like your nachos and waffles and crazy popcorn flavors and stuff like that. So it's going to be something that's kind of themed and fits the vibe as well. So that's going to be really cool.
Well, thank you very much for coming on and talking about a lot of nonsense with me and your wonderful radio show and your I wish you all the best with the show. Chris, Sammy, and I'm not sure who else is going, but I know that they shall be with you on Saturday. So I look forward to a video of Sammy absolutely crapping her pants.
I'm going to make it my mission to, and I might even use you on a show reel for next year.
Do it. Next week, we have the incredibly knowledgeable and man of many opinions, Mr. Mike Kell from the Horror and Geek Asylum, joining me to talk all about a movie I have wanted to cover for a very, very long time, Society.
Ah, okay.
So bring your sick bag.
If you're talking about batshit crazy stuff, then that's,
If you want to watch something absolutely batshit insane and pre-watch it before we talk about it, have at it. I think it's either on Shudder, but it's definitely on Prime. You can either get it through Shudder app on Prime or go straight to Shudder. I'm sure it's on there.
Right.
Yeah, it's something. It is definitely something.
I've experienced it once, and that is quite enough.
For the majority of people, once is enough. But I'm a sadist, and that fits very well with the whole theme of that film. So I need to watch it again. And
Excellent.
Kerry had never seen it, so Mike is not technically making her, but she's getting her foray into society because Mike's going to rewatch it. So I might get some strongly worded emails from Kerry after watching that. So
Thoughts and prayers.
So all the links for Monsters, Nerdy Up North, Bleeding Marvelous, and Distant Screams will be popping up on all over our socials, from TikTok to YouTube to Facebook and Instagram. They'll either be on the Bleeding Marvelous because Monsters is going through a little bit of a change up, but we will get there and you will soon see more stuff on there. But everything, if you need to get hold of anybody, if you have any questions, leave comments below or directly message me through Bleeding Marvelous on anything. If you are going to HorrorWood, please let us know. Put some videos up. We want to see. We want to see you have a great time, and we want to see you shit yourself. Not literally, because that's a whole nother OnlyFans kind of section of the internet that we're not into.
Yeah, I'm not insured for that, unfortunately. So yeah, keep your shit to yourself, please.
I was going to say, hire laws to follow people with a mop and bucket just to,
imagine a wet floor sign.
slip and slide.
It's not fun to see the footage because you don't often get to appreciate it on the day because you're obviously doing a million other things. So it's always nice to see what actually happened on the day because I have no idea.
Yeah, they say it's like a wedding day, isn't it? You just haven't got a clue what the hell happened. You just know that it's the end and you're done.
Yeah.
But I wish you all the best. Thank you very, very much for coming on. Thank you very much to the audio visual tits that is Chris, my emotional support tech. Really appreciated both of you. Bye, Chris. And other Chris. And beyond. Chris from beyond. And genuinely, we'd love to have you on again. And then it might be the both of us next time. So, again, thank you very much.
Oh, no, thanks, Dan. I appreciate it. It's been a lot of fun. It's nice to speak to someone that gets it, that understands all the weird shit going on in my head.
I'm saying nothing with capital N. So we will see you next week with Society. Go to Heywood HorrorWood presents Distant Screams up round the corner behind the Morrisons. If you go there, please put a video up, tag them in it, tag us in it. We want to see what's gone on. And we will see you next week. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye.